Perhaps only second to the Tifosi, some of the most passionate racing fans in the world are Brazilians, and their mecca is Interlagos. Legends have been made here, and today, one more driver is going to add their name to the list of winners as we get ready to watch Round 8 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director Ryan Bauer, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beer. With so much history behind it and so much love for this place, let's spend some time getting to know it with our track guide. Welcome to Autodromo's Jose Carlos Pache. Most fans and drivers simply know this place as Interlagos. Starting life as an absolute behemoth of a circuit, this Brazilian track was eventually truncated to the version you see today. Having hosted Formula One for roughly 3 decades, it's become very well known on the international stage. But it has also held rounds in the World Endurance Championship, as well as frequently seen Brazilian stock cars, motorcycles, and even truck racing. There's little difference between its two layouts, which includes the GP course and the Moto course, which simply adds a chicane to the end of the lap. In both cases, it's a tale of two circuits. The run past the start-finish line and into the Senna S, followed by the blast towards the Descida do Lago, are very high-speed sections that come back-to-back. Drivers will need to focus on top end in order to attack or defend. Expect most passes to happen in those two corners. But from Ferradura until Junção, the track suddenly twists itself into a mess of hairpins and frustratingly technical turns. This can make car setup a real compromise, and for the latter part of the lap, an absolute pain when dealing with traffic. Pit exit is also a narrow affair, so it requires drivers to take care when trying to maximize their outlaps. On the upside, with this being a modern F1 track, there's paved runoff in abundance at many of the fast corners. The passion of the Brazilian fans always comes out in force at races, and it's no wonder with this picturesque track sandwiched right amongst the neighborhoods of Sao Paulo. Well, it may not be the longest of tracks, Joey, but it certainly seems to put on some incredible excitement every time cars come here.
And located in Sao Paulo, yes, an action-packed racetrack down in Brazil. 15 turns, 2.67 miles, 4.30 kilometers. It kicks off at the highest point of the circuit, right at start-finish. Turn 1 dives down into the Senna S's. Got to be really careful through this section. A ton of elevation, and you look at the track map here. Sector 1, a big straightaway going down all the way to turn 4 there, a great passing opportunity. And really, once you start to climb back up the circuit in Sector 2, turns 6 through turns 11 there, it is a much more technical section. You have to rely on the mechanical grip of the car. But then once you reach turn 12, all the way at the bottom of the circuit, it is once again standing on the gas, a huge straightaway that is entirely uphill. Rely on the motor, rely on your downforce settings, and once again, that is a lap that leads you into that highest point at turn 1.
So I'm sure it's going to be a bit of a toss-up on setup. We'll talk about that a little later. Right now in the points, Pauli Partanen back up to the top with his win. 17 points over Topi Cortiniemi. He managed to take the win last time out at Spa and has jumped back to the front, becoming the first driver to reach 3 wins so far this season. Can anybody match him between Cortiniemi and Tolanen is the big question, because you look down beyond that, Clapper, Freckleton, Raina, West, they're all a long ways back. It's basically those top 3 since race 1 who have been our major players. So keep an eye out for those cars. In the meantime, let's take a look at the F2 standings.
A little bit of a similar story. However, the gap isn't quite nearly as big, but the top 3, Bjorn Ackerman, Sam Ryman, Shady Ahmad, only 12 points separating those 3 drivers. And really tip of the cap to Bjorn Ackerman, because he's also leading the F2 driver standings in the Lotus 49 series. So doing double duty between the 49s and the 79s. But then once again, the points really tighten up after Peter Konecny. Only 1 point separating that 5th place position between Pablo Suarez and Miguel Moreland.
Now, for today's race, we've got 28 laps around here, with it being such a short lap. It's an open setup. We mentioned that, and I'm sure Joey will get into detail about the compromises they're going to have to make between the two disparate sides of this circuit. And there is no spare car if you wind up with damage. Now, there is lots of runoff in plenty of places, but we've seen issues here with drivers before tangling with one another, especially down at a turn one. Drive-through penalty is going to be at 17 incidents and a DQ at 25. Got to keep it within the track boundaries, just like in real life. That is a bit of an issue with some of the paved runoff that they do have. Qualifying is underway. Interestingly, I was watching Topi Kortaniemi, and I think he may have either wrecked on his out lap or his warm-up lap. I didn't see which it was, but he's back out, so he might not have the extra comfort zone that guys like this guy here, Partanen, might have on their qualifying.
That's a great catch. I've actually got him. You're right. He was just coming out of pit lane as we watch Pauli Partanen come up this monster hill. He is on his second time lap and our provisional pole sitter right now, 0.3 over his teammate of Jukka Tolvanen. But it's been the story of these three Finns all this season. I really feel like this racetrack, Interlagos, Joe, fits more Topi Kortaniemi's kind of driving style of how he sets up the car, but without missing that first qualifying lap, it'll be interesting.
Especially if it's a case of, the tires really need to get warmed up and the second lap is the money lap. That could really put him under severe pressure here. Here's Topi coming around now. You can see he has not set a time yet. And this is an out lap, so he's just going to be starting it this time. He'll have enough to get around for one flyer. I don't know even if he has the two, if he'll be able to get around for a second one. So he'll cross the line exactly where you were talking about, up to the top of the hill and then plunging down the Senna S.
This racetrack has a ton of elevation. You don't really think about it too much, but it happens in a couple areas, and primarily that turn 1, 2, 3 Senna S feeds out onto this straightaway here before we hit turn 4. Good passing opportunity in the race.
Partanen's had both his laps. Tolanen's taken both of his. Looks like Pauli has the provisional pole by about 0.09 of a second, so just under a tenth between the pair of them. It's tight here, too, just like it is in the real thing, as Topi flies through the infield, down now into some of the tightest and slowest corners on the track. Just nothing but hairpins back and forth.
Really is a drastic change between the first and third sector. Although I think it's kind of cool, this racetrack, even though it is very different on the two ends, it has enough elevation, it has enough camber in these corners that you can trust the grip.
And Topi has managed to make his way to the junction as we switch over to Peter Konieczny, who hasn't set a time either. In fact, I think he's the only other one that has laps left here. So this is going to look very interesting if neither of them manage to set a competitive time. Prix up to 5th with his laps, and Topi sets down a 24-2. That's good enough for 4th. He is up there, but he's going to have to work from behind his rivals.
Yeah, 4th of the Finns that I see so far. Peter Konieczny now putting that foot down, climbing all the way up this hill, and it is a huge climb. You go up through all of the gears. You start way back there in second gear and get it all the way up to the top speed here.
Looks like a 25-1 for Peter. That's his only lap that's going to count for him. He goes to 9th place, and I was wrong. Gernot Prix is able to set one more. We've got about a minute and a half left, so he is coming up the hill now. I'm going to watch and see if he improves on this 6th place. 24-5 currently for his first time across. Second one is going to be a 24-1. Pretty good jump. He'll go up to 4th ahead of Topi Kortaniemi. And interestingly, I'm getting word from some of those in the background in the know that Topi should be a little bit faster than that. So he might be out of position there, starting from 5th and have some hard work to do. But Partanen will be starting on the top spot ahead of Jukka Tolvanen, with Juho Raina starting from 3rd. Gernot Prix able to put himself in 4th. He's recently had another win win, but I'm sure he'd like to add to that tally here in this season, as Topi Kortaniemi will be P5 at the start of this race. As we mentioned, Paul Williams will be to his outside in 6th. Jack David Spickett will start from 7th today, followed by Sam Ryman with an excellent qualifying. Remember, this is top split. Sam qualifying in 8th, that's a great showing. Peter Konieczny will begin from 9th, and Jean-Francois Boscos will start in 10th.
Then we have the number 18 car of Shady Ahmad is going to be sharing row number 6 with Barry West in 12th place. Miguel Moreland here in 13th, AJ Roper in 14th. Cam Porter is going to be starting in 15th. And then the remaining drivers did not set a time in qualifying. They will be gridded by their iRating. Jason Clapper, Ellis Spice, and Gerard Baldu will make up the 18 cars here.
All right, so 18 might not sound like a whole lot, but it's going to be enough with this being such a short lap that they'll definitely stay busy out there. And I'm sure, just like in real life, passing is definitely very possible at this circuit. So we'll get some action without a doubt, as long as they all make it through that first corner, which isn't always a guarantee on its own. Pretty good conditions though, Joey. Just under 90 degrees Fahrenheit on the track.
It's a little bit warm, but you shouldn't have to worry about it too much as the cars get gridded up. Something I was going to say about Topi's qualifying effort, I went back and really looked at the top 5, and they were picking up about 3 to 4 tenths, even 5 tenths on that second qualifying lap. So if you did the same to Topi's qualifying, if he ran a second lap, I think it would put him maybe a tenth shy of where Pauli and Yuka are. So I would keep an eye on that black number 1 car today.
And we've known him to like to have the car trimmed out, and we're hearing that he has most likely set it to be pretty fast in a straight line today, so could help about and try to make some passes. He's going to have to do them quick, I imagine, because if he finds himself being held up and not keeping up with Tolman and Partanen, they could run away before he even has a shot at trying to fight for the victory here today. Just a couple more cars to line up in our last half minute before the time is up, and we'll get the lights out. We're still waiting on the front 2 rows, actually, and now we're starting to see them pop in as the drivers have finally settled on how they want their setup, are happy with how things are. And there's Reina, now Tolanen and Partanen going to be the final 2. The teammates making everybody wait until the last moment, and they're ready. That means that we'll start to hear the engines rev here in Brazil as the lights come up for round 8 of the Sunday Grand Prix series, and the green flag is out. Off the line, Partanen a little slow in the second phase. Here comes Tolanen up his inside. Kortaniemi gets an excellent start. He's already fighting with Juho Reina for 3rd, coming into the Senna S, and it looks like Partanen will hold on to the lead from the pole position, as behind them they come down the hill without incident.
Yeah, they file it down through that Senna S and now onto this little straightaway here before we get a nice braking opportunity. It really is Jukka Tolanen under pressure from Juho Reina. Topi Kortaniemi was able to sneak his way into the 4th position.
And a little farther back, it looks like we've got a few drivers still battling side by side, but other than that, it is mostly single file here early in the lap. Partanen, Tolanen, and Reina, as you heard, your top 3. Kortaniemi was able to at least get 1 spot at the beginning over Gernot Frische, but is still stuck behind that red Ferrari.
And I'm looking through the field. Everybody is still pointed the right way. And on the concrete, we're going through this slower technical sector 2 of the racetrack. Pauli Partanen already kind of scooting away right now. You got to stay in touch with them. Remember how important that draft is once you hit this corner and got to go all the way up that hill.
We see some overtakes here for the first time, running their way past the Subidos dos Boxes, past the water tower, and to the start-finish line once again. Partanen definitely well clear of Tolanen, who's also gapped Reina, but it looks like Kortaniemi has a very good run. He's going to look to the inside. Juho is not going to defend. He'll let him have the spot. That's up to P3, and that's exactly what I was talking about, Joey. He needed to make quick work to be here.
Track position is incredibly important in this series. If you lose touch with these front 2, it is so tough to gain that time back, so you need to stay in that slipstream. So Topi doing exactly what he needs to do. Jump back here to Barry West, riding in 11th place.
Chasing on Boskus there in front of him in 10th. I've also got Sam Ryman kind of scampering away in front of him. So he's going to try and keep himself clear of that group as we come back to Reina. Still chasing on Courtney after that overtake. He has Frisha close behind. He could also demote him a spot. So it's not just looking forward for this red number 5. He's got to watch out behind.
That's a great point, because once Topi was able to get by Juho, I think Gernot was saying, you know what, I want to be a part of that front pack too. Mr. Reina, you got to pick up the pace. Don't let him scoot away from us.
No doubt. He's going to try his best to stay involved, and especially for Gernot, we know that he's almost always good towards the end of the race. Tends to like to set up the car to be fast when it gets lighter. If he could get that clear track in front of him, that will be bad news for everybody if he winds up having only the leaders to try and catch by the end. As we watch from Peter Konieczny now, he's just behind the battle between Williams and Spickett. That's Spickett to the inside on the left-hand side in the Pepsi car. A long way around for Paul Williams, and he's going to be able to get the job done.
Really nice move from Paul Williams, and actually Jack David Spickett with that little bit of lockup is now going to be square in the sights of Peter Konieczny. Let's see if Peter can make a move. He is in the slipstream. I'm not sure if he's going to be close enough here in 4. He's going to take a peek, but no, Jack David Spickett shuts the door.
Down through the Interlagos, he has to back off of it. Jack already trying to see if he can re-catch Paul Williams in front of him as we jump on to Jason Clapper, Mr. Hard Charger. He's on Barry West, who's got AJ Roper in front of him as they go through the Ferradura, the horseshoe, double apex right-hander, up over a crest and leading down to the braking of the Essa.
And now it goes downhill just a little bit, but let that camber, the banking in this track really catch you on those outside tires. And not only is Barry West and AJ Roper right in front of Jason Clapper, but Miguel Moreland was also in that battle. Jason Clapper is Cam Porter and Shady Ahmad right behind him. It's about 6 to 8 cars lined up.
So back up to our leaders, Partanen about a second ahead of Tolinen, and same distance back to Courtniemi on top of it. But let's watch and see what these laps look like. Partanen with a 24.3, Courtniemi with a 24.4. So pretty even on pace, and Partanen holds the fastest lap amongst them for now.
I think what the biggest point is when you look at that lead battle, Joe, the top 3, only about 0.8 separate Pauli and Yuka, 1.3 between Yuka and Topi, so he's right there on that edge of that slipstream.
And remember, this is not modern F1. There's no DRS to help them try to catch up. So that 1 second is all got to be natural for them to try and gain on their rivals as we go down through the lake descent once again, following the battle between Moreland and Clapper, riding on board with Jason, who isn't quite close enough for anything sneaky into the horseshoe. But watch ahead of them. AJ Roper kind of looks like he's backing the train up a little bit.
Well, and Jason Clapper was able to dispose of Barry West that previous lap, so I think that definitely kind of working his way forward, and this is the view from AJ Roper in this blue and green machine. You were mentioning definitely has a train starting to form behind him.
It's not going to be good news once they get back to the front stretch, because if they're close enough, it could mean a couple positions lost, depending on how fast they are, as we get side by side once again. Konieczny and Spickett. He already lost out to Williams before. What did he learn from last time? Can he manage to defend? He's going to cover the inside once again on their way up the hill. Last time he did that, though, Joey, he lost the spot.
And let's see what he can do this time. Another big lockup going into turn 1, but Peter has a bigger wiggle. They're going to stay stagnant in terms of positions, but look who joined the party. Sam Ryman now wants that spot.
The British expat is all over the back of him as he's going to see if he can pick up the pieces from that little slip from Peter Konieczny, but no dice. He's not quite near enough into the braking. Sam, known as one of the more respectful drivers, tends to not fight things too hard, looks for less risk and more bringing it home. So maybe he'll wait for a clearer opportunity later.
Well, and look at what it does for his points battle. You know, he's right there, second place in his F2 Drivers Championship. So his approach of being safe on the racetrack, get those finishes, collect checkered flags, get all the way to the end of the race, it works out when you look at the big picture.
Certainly does. And I saw another little hiccup there from Peter coming into the infield just a little wide on the first apex. Wonder if that's going to open the door somewhere. Meanwhile, Freesia still trying to find the door through Reina just in front of him. This is for fourth position. He's going to get a nice pull up the hill, past the grandstands and towards the finish line. Just don't think it's quite enough unless he's very aggressive here.
Oh, he's got to make a really late move. He's going to poke his nose down, but decides to stay right there behind Juho Reina. Wasn't quite far enough to really make that lunge, and now we go through another little straightaway here. I don't think the gap is quite close enough for Gernot to make a move still.
No, I think he's a little too far back. You're right. And he's going to stay behind through turn 4. Just continue to follow behind the Finn. Right now, it's a finish 1, 2, 3, 4. You've actually seen more than that in the past if this is your first time tuning into the series, where they've gone 5 or 6 drivers deep at the front of the field. But some of them, from what I read in the text, it sounds like there's been a bit of illness going around in Finland. A few, unfortunately, missing today due to some flu, so I wish them well, those of you who have had to miss today. This is the lap comparison in the meantime between Partanen and Tolinen, our top 2, and curiously Tolinen is been a little bit quicker than the others, but lap 1 was a lot slower for Partanen.
Hey, we got to remember, we had the standing start on lap 1.
True.
So that's why that lap 1 is a little bit off compared to the rest. But I've been watching that interval gap, and it's been hovering right there at 0.8 of a second. I really feel like this is that chess game between Pauli and Jukka, where they stay in touch with each other. They can do identical pace, and then when they need to kind of flex their muscle and pull out the fast lap at the end with about 4 or 5 laps remaining, that's really when to start watching.
But I saw someone have a problem a little bit as Gernot having trouble keeping the car pointed forward, but thankfully did not spin it around, but that's going to lose him a few feet up to that bright red machine. We might want to go back to AJ Roper. I think Clapper has already, yeah, there he is. He's already ahead of him.
Yes, he has. I've been watching this with my other eye. Jason has kind of been picking off 1 car per lap. Just got by AJ Roper up the main straightaway and down into turn 1. A pretty classic move here, Joe.
So nicely done. We're going to see the replay. Yeah, just down to the inside. Not much of a fight from AJ. And lets him go. Wonder if AJ's also kind of in the same mode as Ryman. No, he actually just went way wide coming through Pinarino. And he's going to be able to keep it on the circuit. But again, some of these cars looking a little bit out of sorts, interestingly.
So, Joe, you were mentioning AJ Roper kind of being the cork in the bottle earlier. I feel like AJ has a lot of speed, maybe a little bit more speed than where he's running. However, it's these small mistakes that he keeps making. That's what kind of backs him up into everything.
So he won't lose the position, but the lucky number 13, just above that spot, has to watch out or he might match. Meanwhile, these two going to be swapping that spot because it's Barry West overtaking Miguel Moreland. The teammates switch around and Barry goes to P13.
Nice little pass. We're going to see a lot of that. I think that's the best passing opportunity. Use the power of that draft all the way up the hill and then make the move into turn 1 where you have to really get deep on the brakes. Use that pedal pressure to make that pass happen.
Only on lap 8. We are still in very early days. And yes, it has gone a fair bit single file, but we've definitely been seeing some overtakes here and there. Freesia would like to add to that from his 5th position, but he's been just a bit stuck behind Juho Reina. So what can he do here to try and make something happen?
And back down the hill, use the camber of this racetrack, really accelerate through this section. It's a lot faster than what it appears on the screen, but it kind of checks you up into what I consider the final corner. It's not the final turn number, but the most important corner on the racetrack because it leads onto the longest straightaway.
Easily the longest straightaway, and it does have some corners there, but in these cars, they're definitely easily flat out. There's no lifting, but there's just not enough. I wonder if Juho has a little less wing than Gernot has in it, and that's what's keeping him out of range.
It's always the ebb and flow, right? How do you set up the car versus what is dirty air doing to you in other sections of the racetrack? And I will say here in iRacing, if you run identical wing levels, you can close the gap. But once you get out into that clean air, it really stalls you out.
Let's not forget, this is top split. For those not familiar, iRacing will have a maximum amount of cars that can run in a race. So when more drivers in that number signs up, it will split you by I rating. And the lowest we have here is 2,600. That's Shady Ahmad, a number 18, which is still not too bad. It's not an impressive I rating, but everybody else has a higher one than them. So it is a stacked field here, and it is going to be tough to find any inroads with anybody making mistakes. It's going to be rare. And look at the different lines here between Frisha and Ronnie. I wonder if he's trying to set him up a little bit.
Maybe a little bit of clean air, trying to get to the nose, poking out early into that final corner, and he is closer than what I've seen leading onto the straightaway, but still, he's about 10 car lengths back, and that's just too much to close on the straightaway.
No, just not going to be near enough to him to try and make it happen. Wonder if he's going to have to get tricky and try it somewhere else around the circuit. Yeah, that could be, especially look at how close he gets right here.
It has to be into this next turn 4 section, because if he is running that higher downforce level like you're talking about, Joe, if he can make the pass right here, he's got entire sector 2 to essentially run away from Yuho using that downforce, using the slower section where you really have to use the grip, and then maybe you've gapped him out enough by the time that straightaway comes back around.
Curiously, we're not seeing a whole lot of position changes from start positions out there as I look up and down the timing tower. Honestly, the only one that's made huge inroads, no surprises, this man, Jason Clapper, up through Ferradura, has gained 6 from the beginning because he never qualifies and he always starts from the back of the field. So he's cracked into the top 10, and next on his list is going to be Sam Ryman.
I think when he catches Sam, I wouldn't doubt to see kind of Sam let him by. I think he knows that Jason always starts at the back. And remember, it'll still be a top 10 in points if Sam even just gives up that one position.
Exactly. And Sam's main concern is that F2 championship, beating out Bjorn Ackerman, who is not racing today, curiously. I'm not sure why he hasn't elected to run this one, because we did see him earlier this weekend with the 49s out at the Nürburgring. Maybe that just took all his focus yesterday morning. But Ronnie versus Frisha, still stuck in the stalemate we've seen since nearly the beginning of this race.
Now it's actually kind of calmed down just a touch here. Let's think about the big picture. Since we're not even halfway through, we were talking about the downforce levels between the difference in these two cars between Yuho and Gernot, right? Well, that can also come into the later half of this race. If you are using a lower downforce setup and you are sliding the car around more, you potentially are using more of that tire early on when you really need it later in the race.
That's a good point, and especially considering this track has all these slow corners. Would it be something where if you didn't have much downforce, you'd notice it a lot more in those slow corners as you're starting to kind of peel it away?
I think so, yes. Now, we do have to remember these cars make their downforce from their ground effect underneath. Now, in the slower corners, they aren't producing as much downforce, so you're really relying more on the tire, the mechanical grip through those slower sections of corners. But either way, Joe, with a lower downforce car, it's typically a little bit more loose. You have to drive the car, you have to manage that tire wear more.
Into the braking of the Senna S once again. Ronnie not defending that inside. He feels pretty comfortable at this stage over Gernot Frisha. He just can't quite get to him to try and put that pressure on that he needs to see if he could shake a mistake out of the fin. So as the number 5 leads the way down to turn 4, we hop back on board with Frisha. That looked like a little bit of a look down to the inside, though, but definitely not a serious attempt.
I think he realized that he's got to get the pass done there. He's just not close enough climbing the hill here. It would have to be an extremely aggressive move at the top of the hill right here, and it can be done. We've seen it before. The other item that I was noticing, Joe, is that if these two start battling, Paul Williams in that number 6 car, he's not in the picture right now, but he is there.
And we saw Paul make that pass on Spigot earlier on, so we know that he's got a little fervor in him today, that he could try and do something to crack into the top 5, but he's got to get there first as we come back once again down to Miguel Moreland, looks like, with Barry West, and now Jean-Francois Boscus, who has been caught by them. This is the battle for 12th.
As they go down the hill here, Jean-Francois Boscus kind of leading this train. You see AJ Roper there even kind of trying to scoot away from it. But it's really going to be all about Barry West and this slipstream effort up the straightaway.
Tend to see AJ Roper both in these races, and he shows up tomorrow night, usually in the Porsche Owners Club. And this time in open wheels, he's holding his own, up 3 positions from where he started this one. But there's another mistake. We've been seeing a lot of those from him, just outbreaking himself.
Yeah, we'll stay right here on AJ Roper. I thought there was going to be a position change for 4th, but you're right, Joe. It's just those small little mistakes. I said it earlier. I feel like AJ has more speed than where he's running. Sometimes instead of driving 11 tenths, you just have to actually drive slower in order to go faster.
It's definitely been keeping this group close to him, a little bit uncomfortably close, honestly. If he makes another hiccup like that, they could get a good opportunity, as we've got 5 cars in a line now with Shady Ahmad at the back of them. Shady, if anything, has kind of got the reverse problem, where he's qualified quite well, started this race from 11th, and has fallen backwards since the beginning of that. But with everybody in front of him, he hasn't lost touch, at least.
Just got to stay calm. Sometimes it's about limiting your own mistakes. Now, in racing, you always want to go out there and be the fastest and win, but not every single day is your day, and you just have to drive to your speed level, your car's ability out there, and once you overstep it, that's when the mistakes make. You don't want to make those mistakes. Limit them. That's how you get your best finishes.
On board with Barry. Looks like he did not get the exit that he needed on Jean-Francois, so he's not going to be able to try and make the move this time around. In fact, the train stays as it is, with Jean-Francois leading the way. AJ really leading the way, but he's jumped ahead a little bit. And you remember your prediction about Clapper? Well, it looks like he did go by Sam, and I think he let him through.
Yeah, it happened actually a little bit sooner than what I thought. I'm looking at Jason's lap times. 1:24.9 is what he is running right now. It's going to kind of peak out right where he's at. I'll be curious to see if he actually climbs the ladder anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot farther up to Knesny at 4.5 seconds. So this is coming out of the Curva de Sol. And yeah, that looks like a little bit of a lift. So Sam's going to let him through. Didn't want to try and battle. Oh, maybe doing a bit of what you talk about all the time, Joey. Maybe he's got that notebook out and he's watching to see what Jason's doing.
I love it because I think in the sim, it's lost. You know, in real world racing, we're always striving to get better. That's what's on our mind. And in the sim, we kind of get that aggression level out that we're always racing. But remember, you got to keep learning no matter what you're doing.
There's always something to learn. You never know everything out there. And right now, Gernot Frische, I think, knows that more than anybody, considering he has the most championships and most wins in the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix series. So this is a guy that has been around for a lot of years, has been racing this car almost endlessly since it came out on iRacing. And even as many things as he knows about it, he's been beat recently and has been trying to find his way back to the front and be able to be as fast as guys like Partanen and Tolinen. We're hearing that his pace right now, though, is about 0.4 of a lap slower than Partanen, our leader. So yes, there's certainly a few tricks, I think, that he can try and pick up.
And we also have to remember that he's in the dirty air from Yuho. He's been in the dirty air the entire time. That hasn't been helping his tires at all. So unfortunately, they have lost touch with that podium, that top 3. However, I think if Gernot can get around Mr. Reina today, he'll consider that a nice accomplishment, challenge 1.
Partanen just set the fastest lap, interestingly enough. A 23.9, first driver to break under 124. I'm sure we'll see Tolinen and Korteniemi do likewise soon, since they all essentially get quicker as the cars get lighter. Shady Ahmad looking like he's got a good chance on Moreland. Very pretty looking car with the teal and gray. Whoa! I almost thought he had the momentum, but maybe had to lift there for a bit.
Got to be careful with those, what's called an emergency lane change, and now he's on the outside of that Senna S. That's never going to work unless you are all the way up alongside. However, this might be another passing opportunity as long as he doesn't get a big wiggle here. He's got Miguel Moreland right in front of him. Go out drivers left, and you see he's already up alongside. It's going to be a braking duel. We'll see if Shady can hang on to it. A little bit of door contact between the two, move him up a spot.
Shady says, what doors? This is an open wheeler, and I am through up into 14th. So there's one spot back that he lost earlier in the race. Is the car now coming to him? Was he just not happy with it at the beginning?
Side pod contact, wheel contact, whatever you want to call it, Joe. You're right. Definitely doesn't have a door.
I got called out on that a long time ago. And, Jack David Spickett, both going off. That was very, very polite there. He could have carried on and tried to hold that position over Peter, but he definitely gave a lot of wiggle room on his return to the track, which drivers are always calling for, but I am surprised that we didn't see him rush back onto the circuit.
I think the big thing here is that he wasn't sure where Peter was. He was probably in a big blind spot, so I think Jack David Spickett just doing the right thing.
Yeah, great to see, although unfortunately for him, he now has to do the hard work and repass. Speaking of which, here we go, Boskus and Barry West. West is going to make the move, but not make it stick, as Jean-Francois slides right back past him.
An excellent example of the over-under, the switcheroo, whatever you want to call it, but now Barry West has the opportunity. I think Jean-Francois Boskus is, a little bit of contact between the front and the back between the two. Barry West is going to have to hang on to it. Here comes Shady Ahmad.
He's going to be on the wrong side of the track, up into the horseshoe, though. He will have to go the long way around. I've seen it done, but rarely, and it's not going to work this time. We'll have to split the two teammates.
I don't see any nose damage on the front here of Barry West, so I think he might have got away with one. However, he's got the mirrors full. Shady Ahmad, Miguel Moreland, they're all looking for a piece.
And this is actually helping out Jean-Francois quite a bit because he's now running away. And A.J. Roper as well. You mentioned him needing to get some wiggle room out there. Well, he's now about a second and a half in front of this pack. So he's hopefully settled down a little bit with 11 laps to go and can focus forward. Maybe to see if he can catch up to Sam Ryman, but it'll take a lot per lap to try and make that happen. One more time on board with Shady.
Climbing up over the start-finish line here. Barry West goes defensive in the middle of the racetrack. Let's see who can get down through this turn 1, 2, 3 complex. All about putting the power down, and I actually think it's Miguel Moreland that's right behind Shady Ahmad, but it is tough being that third car and train.
I think this is closer than we've seen in the past here between Gernot and Juho. See if he can keep with it. And as soon as I say that, he loses a few feet behind that bright red machine. So he's going to have to regain this one back. This is the difference in lap times. Gernot, about a 10th quicker per lap on average. These last 3 laps, he needs to be this tight to him all the way up the hill, but he struggles to get the power down off of the junction.
Yeah, I saw that too. He was just kind of squirming those rear tires, trying to find that forward drive to keep up with the number 5 car. But it was actually last lap, Joe, that Gernot and Juho, they were side by side entering turn 1, but Gernot was on the outside going into turn 1, couldn't complete the pass.
So achingly close. I'm sure the patience is there from what I know of Gernot, but oh, wow, that time he was a lot slower coming off of the curve at Sol. There behind them, Paul Williams is losing the 2 of them, even with what little battling we've seen. It's up to about 3.5 seconds now, so not looking as likely that it'll become a part of this unless they do start fighting very hard. Moreland chasing behind the likes of Shady Ahmad, who was not able to get close enough to Barry West as they stay stuck in a line, unable to keep up with Jean-Francois, who's absolutely broken the draft now.
It'll be interesting to see how this three-car train develops. Remember, this has been going on for quite some time. This is a replay from a little bit earlier. This is Barry West and Jean-Francois Boscus just kind of swapping these positions around, Joe, using the toe, using whatever tools they've got.
Oof, just barely found the space and timed it right to get down to the inside. Just unfortunately did not quite break soon enough. Sent it in a little bit deep. Couldn't keep it together, and back goes Jean-Francois Boscus, from which he simply scampered away from his rivals. So nicely done from the number 8 machine there. Back to Juho and Gernot. And bouncing over those curbs a little bit. They may be relatively flat curbs, but you definitely don't want to break the underside of this car.
As we check in on our leader, now, Joe, look, the gap's grown to 2.5 seconds over Jukka Tolvanen. I went back through the laps, and Jukka went back. He set his fastest lap, but the next lap after that, he was almost 3/4 of a second off pace. So all of a sudden, that 1.5 seconds between our 1-2 lead has now jumped to 2.5 seconds.
Maybe the VTEC finally kicked in for Pauli Partanen, and he's on his way. The number 3 might be able to make it back-to-back wins once again. It's been a theme all season. When a driver wins, he tends to win the very next race and then not the one after that. It's just 2 wins together and then off to the next person. So he's going to continue that trend if this stays put. Shady Ahmad and Barry West is very much under threat, but it's difficult to pass into these corners, so he'll stay ahead for the time being.
We've talked about the different sectors on the track, the different setups, the different downforce levels, and if I was to guess, I think that Shady Ahmad is a great example of a little bit of a lower downforce setting, Joe. He's kind of picking his way through this middle sector, but once he gets to this straightaway here, as long as he's close enough, Barry West is going to be a victim.
Yeah, that was a much better run this time by Shady. He should have a good opportunity. Hopefully he can time it right this time. Talked about that emergency lane change. This time, yes, much smoother, but he's around the outside. West's going to defend. Last time he did that, he outbraked himself. Shady holding on. Are they going to bang wheels? Nope, they're going to stay as they were, and off goes Barry West back into P13. Shady Ahmad, though, with a great exit, watching from Miguel's view. Oh, no, he gets into him. He spins around, keeps it off the wall. Can he keep it from... Oh, my goodness. He does not touch a thing, and he's back on the track. I'm sure he's not happy about losing the positions, but that was one of the most brilliant saves I've ever seen.
This is a move from the stunt driving school. You see Shady on the outside here. I thought that he had a great run out of turn 3. Maybe Barry West kind of crowded him back over, but either way, there was just a little bit of contact, and yeah, I would say that Barry West definitely came back over.
Oof, inches away from hitting the barrier, but he's still running. And, you know, it looks to me like Barry probably was trying to go for a quick defense and just didn't realize that Shady was going to have his nose in right when he made the move.
Yeah, but either way, like you were commenting, just an amazing car control moment from Shady Ahmad to keep it off of the walls. Unfortunately, lost a lot of track position in the process.
Thought for sure it was going to wreck twice in that moment, but let's watch from on board Miguel Moreland here. He is ahead of Barry West, so I assume he's going to get a pass done over his teammate. Is there a mistake from Barry? Ooh, a big one. Has to lock him up and then gets it straight, but once he does that, Miguel is through.
Oh, and no, you know, we're looking at AJ Roper here in just a second. I had my eye on Shady Ahmad, who just went into the wall in the Senna S's here, and AJ Roper's actually fallen back a little bit, back to 14th because of this right here, a spin coming down out of turn 1.
For some reason, turn 1 getting a little bit slippery. So Shady and AJ Roper both having incidents. Here is Ahmad's problem coming into there. All that talent used up in the one save, unfortunately, and just boinks off the Armco.
Yeah, pretty much an identical incident there, Joe. The Senna S's, it is really tricky how it comes from the top of the hill all the way down the hill. You have to be gentle with the throttle there.
It always amazes me how loose the car gets, no matter which car you're in, coming into the first left-hander of that one. So, yeah, I think no shame there for both those drivers running out of talent a little bit and losing it into the corner, because that is a deceptively tough turn.
Watching our leader, Pauli Partanen, I made the comment that it was about 2.5 seconds gap. It is now up over 3 seconds to Jukka Tolvanen. And you see even Pauli, though, having a little bit of a wiggle going into that corner entry.
I'm sure he's pushing. I mean, if he knows that Jukka is behind him, he's not going to sit and rest, because he knows he's going to be pushing him the whole way. And if they get close to each other, yes, they've got Topi about 1.5 seconds back, but I'm sure come the last lap, they're going to be fighting each other for the win, because we've seen that happen before. They just got to make sure they can't let that number one catch up to them and try and steal the win away. So it's not over, but it certainly looks like Pauli has a pretty good stranglehold on this one right now.
5 laps to go. We're checking back in on this Gernot Frische Juho Räikkönen battle. I want to make one more comment about our leaders, though, Joe. I don't think that Jukka's going to be able to catch Pauli. That gap is just too big. What has drawn my eye, though, is Topi Kortiniemi has hung on to the back of Jukka Tolvanen, only about 1.6 seconds out. So I feel if there's anything that's going to develop on the podium, it has to come from this car right here.
I want to give a little credit to Shady Ahmad. We talk a lot about the gentleman drivers in this series, and the 18 does appear to have a wounded car because he's been off the pace, and he actually let the other drivers behind him go as they started to catch them, did not fight them, and just kind of pulled off to the side. So big credit to Shady for trying to finish the race, but also not trying to compromise other people's races.
We have to remember, we're not the only cars on the racetrack. We're not the only ones out there. So yes, fantastic to see just camaraderie between all the competitors. And I pointed out every week in all of these vintage series, all of the racers, they are just so nice to each other. They are competitive. They want to win the race. They're not just going to pull over for you, but they give you racing room.
It's so much like a club out here, these drivers racing each other, because it's a lot smaller than some of the communities elsewhere in iRacing. So it's everybody knows everybody kind of situation. And right now, Frische knows Räikkönen. He knows him very well. And in fact, does he know him well enough that he could try and effect a pass? That actually got a defense. Oh, and a big wiggle under braking from Juho. He will hold it together, but we're starting to see the cracks show, and Gernot sees them as well. He's poking his nose.
And Gernot just couldn't quite hold the nose in turn 2 as close as what he wanted it to. But you're right, Joe. I feel like Gernot in that downforce level, it might be starting to pay its dividends here with 4 laps remaining.
Don't need a replay on it because it was just pulling off to the side, but Spickett has let Clapper through once Jason caught him. So the 10 car is now up into 8th position. So we continue to watch this battle for P4, not even for the podium positions. And you can bet that they're going to be fighting hard here between these two. Tolvanen, another one of those that is one of the most successful drivers in this series, has definitely been around for some time. And he and the rest of them obviously have put a lot of laps in, have won a lot of races. Jukka with 7 to his name. Partanen has the most of that top group at 21. I actually have to see how many Räikkönen has in this, because I'm not sure if he's won a race yet in this series.
Gernot is a little bit closer this time. Now, he's not going to make a move here into turn 1, but as long as he can keep it tight and tidy in this 1, 2, 3 Senna S. Can he hold the nose here? Juho Räikkönen just is able to escape a little bit. It's not going to come from this lap, but Joe, you were talking earlier about those championships, how our winners have won 2 in a row. Got to remember, that fast lap is also worth some points, and Topi Kortiniemi, that last lap around, he was able to steal that away.
The plot thickens. By the way, Juho Räikkönen has not won yet in this series. Interestingly, I'm not sure how this orders it in the drivers that haven't won yet, but he's the highest ranked that I'm seeing on our stat sheet without a win. So I'll have to ask Michael to see how he's ordered those below the win rating, because usually at the top, it is according to who has taken the most wins as to how they've sorted them. Looking a little farther down, we have had lots of good racing towards the back of the pack. Cam Porter, Ellis Spice, and Gerard Boldu have been fighting one another since pretty much the very beginning. We just haven't been able to show them because there have been better battles up towards the sharp end of the field.
And they're just kind of equidistant apart right here. I feel like this fight here between these three, it's all about racing yourself, racing your pace. If you have a little bit more, you start to creep up and hopefully are able to make a move, but it's all about limiting your mistakes out here. Don't let that cart in the mirror affect you.
Cam's usually pretty good about that. Can he hold up today against Ellis and Gerard? Shady Ahmad, by the way, has officially retired. Sadly, he is out of this race down in 18th, so I think he's decided he's done enough and he's not going to be able to gain any positions from here. These three continuing to run line astern through the rest of the infield, getting ready to take the long climb up the hill out of the junction. In fact, I just realized they're relatively close to being lapped. They're not going to have enough time left for Pauli to catch them, but Pauli's actually doing the same behind them just now.
Yeah, and Topi has actually caught the draft of Jukka Tolvanen, so he is now within 1 second of that second place car as we ride on board with our leader. He will see the white flag as he comes around. And just a report, guys, Gernot Prix unfortunately had a big-time lockup into turn 1 that last time around. That battle is no more between him and Juho Raina.
White flag for Pauli Partanen, 1 to go. Tolvanen about 3 seconds back. Still, the battle is sort of on for second place because Jukka's only got about a second over Topi Korteniemi. And I wonder if any little mistake will open the door enough. It's going to be a bit far back, but Topi's going to pounce on it if he sees a chance.
Well, and I was looking at all of their lap times, 123.5 out of all 3 of the cars that last time around. So if anything, they might have cooled it down and they're making their sprint for their fast lap right here on the last lap.
Yeah, got to leave everything on the table from here. Partanen almost sliding it through some of the corners. He doesn't need those tires after this. And he is using the last of it up. Of course, the car tends to get a bit loose too as it lightens up and the fuel burns off. So just essentially one more actual corner to go, at least one more braking zone for Pauli Partanen, continuing the trend that has started since the very beginning, first 2 races of this season. They come in 2s, and for Pauli Partanen, it's going to be back-to-back wins once again to extend his points lead in the Sunday Grand Prix Series with a victory in Brazil.
Got some victory wiggles as they come across the line. Jukka Tolvanen will stand on that second step of the podium. Topi Korteniemi coming 3rd.
Gernot just not close enough. He wound up about 2 seconds behind Juho in the end. In fact, the closest we've got amongst the top 10 was that battle for P2 at 0.8 of a second apart from one another at the line. Then you have to go all the way down to 11th for the first battle here between Jean-Francois and Miguel. This is the battle for that 11th spot coming up the hill. As long as Jean-Francois is good off the corner, he should be clear.
Yeah, watch them as they put the... Oh, a little bit too much on the throttle there. Going to cost Miguel Moreland, and he's actually got to be careful because Barry West and company is right behind him.
Yeah, they're going to start catching them, but West is probably worried about the car behind because AJ Roper is climbing all over his gearbox, but he runs out of racetrack, and AJ has to settle for 14th. Could we see a swap for the last 3 cars as we see some celebrations up at the front? Pauli Partanen did, in fact, get the fastest lap before he wrapped up that race. So he'll get the bonus point as well as, or bonus points, as well as the bonus points for the pole position. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. So stick around.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Interlagos. We had a good race there up at the front, except for Pauli Partanen not relinquishing the lead. He kept his teammate kept him honest all the way to the finish. Jukka Tolvanen made him work hard, but by the end it was about 3 seconds apart. And Pauli took the win, making it win number 2 with maximum points today, most critically. Tolvanen followed him home with Korteniemi finishing in P3, as Juho Raine finished in 4th, and Gernot Friesche rounding out your top 5. He kept Jukka on his toes the whole way, but couldn't make the pass. Paul Williams finished in 6th, as Peter Konieczny was 7th. Jason Clapper, with his traditional climb, got all the way up into 8th position, as Jack David Spickett was 9th, and Sam Ryman gets himself a top 10.
And in 11th place here, we have Jean-Francois Boscus. Miguel Moreland finishing in 12th. Barry West in 13th. AJ Roper hangs on to the 14th spot. Cam Porter going to finish in 15th. Ellis Spice in 16th. And really, Gerard Baldieu was in a battle with everybody in front of him that whole race, going to finish 17th. And unfortunately, we were able to highlight what happened to Shady Ahmad, our only car that did not reach the checkered flag.
Looks like we've got Pauli ready to talk to us, and was another one of those rather straightforward races from our perspective, but let's see if Pauli thinks so, because Pauli, it looked like Jukka was relatively close behind for most of it, but by the end, you were kind of starting to eke away from him.
Yeah, I was taking the first laps very carefully because I don't know why this track seems like you go fast when you go slow kind of track, that if you overheat the tires, you will lose time. So I was really cautious and driving slowly the first 10 laps to be sure that I don't overheat the tires, and then I started pushing at the end when I saw that Topi is catching.
And we even heard Joey mention that at one point, that sometimes drivers need to slow down a little bit to pick up the pace. But off the line, I was kind of watching. It looked like at one point you were almost being caught by Jukka down into turn 1. Is this a difficult car to try and get going at the green flag?
Well, Jukka is a bit younger than me. I don't know, is that the reason? But Jukka always has a better reaction time than me. I must be very slow with my reaction time, but this is the same story in every track, every race. Jukka always gets better start, and I know exactly how Jukka starts, and I do exactly the same things. So he just has much better reaction time. So that's my weakness really. But yeah, Jukka had great start like always, and gladly I was able to be at the front of him. But yeah, he got a mega start.
Maybe just need a bit more coffee right before the start to help you out.
I know. Jukka takes usually beer or something alcohol before the race, so that might be it. I don't take.
Well, congratulations on another win. You've kept up our trend of every winner gets 2 in a row. Can you break it next week?
We'll see. I don't really not sure even if I drive the next week. So most likely it will be skip week, but we will see. And I was happy today with my pace, and I was surprised Topi got so bad quality. Maybe he had some kind of accident there or something like that. So that helped a lot. I'm sure if Topi would have a better quality, this would be a kind of different story, to be honest. But yeah, I'm happy.
Well, again, that was our winner, Pauli Partanen, after taking the victory, fastest lap and pole position. Behind him was Jukka Tolvanen. Joey has caught up with the man who apparently has quick reaction times.
Jukka, congratulations on the second place here at Interlagos.
Thanks. Yeah, feels good to be back on podium after struggling for a couple of weeks, so thanks.
So we just heard Pauli say that he thinks your reactions are maybe due to certain fluids that you were consuming before the race. Can you confirm or deny that?
Well, it's a running joke that Pauli has had, but I won't comment that more on.
No, it's all in good fun over here. To get back to the real questions at hand, though, I noticed that black number 1 car kind of creeping into your mirrors in the last few laps of the race. Were you worried about Topi?
Well, definitely I was worried about Topi. I knew that my pace is going down towards the end of the race, so I had seen during the week that my I don't know if my tires were overheating or what, but I just could not answer the pace that Pauli had in the end of the race. So I was just trying to build as big gap as possible during the race, and it was just enough. It was really tight.
Well, looking at the trends of this championship, so you started this season with 2 wins, and then Pauli got 2 wins. Now Topi got 2 wins. Now Pauli got 2 wins again. When are you going to stand on the top?
Well, I'm afraid it's not next week. I will probably miss next week. So, well, I will need a little miracle to really be in the championship fight anymore. But I will drive the races that I can attend and see what happens. It's always possible that something happens for the leaders and so on. But I will also try to help Pauli to win the champ if I don't have the possibility. So yeah, anyway.
Well, I love seeing you out here racing, Jukka. You're one of my favorites to watch. Thank you for coming out and participating with us all. And is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, Pauli, of course, he had fever this week and we were not able to practice as much as usually, but he, of course, delivered on Sunday as always, so amazing drive. And also nice to be able to fight Topi again after a while. It was good race, thrilling race towards the end, and all the CTC guys and you for the broadcast, and maybe 1 week ahead, it's Father's Day next week here in Finland at least. So maybe my father is watching. So yeah, thanks.
That's a great one. Happy early Father's Day to Mr. Tolinen as well. And that was your 2nd place finisher, driver of that number 4 car.
Nice little sentiment there from Tolinen, and we've got Topi Kortaniemi, who wound up 3rd today. Topi, it was kind of so close yet so far. I mean, you were within a second by the end of the race of Jukka, but it never looked like you were really hassling him.
Yeah, they just had the pace today, legit. So they deserve to win the JPS.
We noticed, we did catch, not on screen, but I was able to visually confirm that you had an incident there in qualifying. Did that put you on the back foot? Did that cost you a better queue time?
Well, yeah, I didn't have the race pace still, even if I had qualified well, because I just had the banker lap down with the half cold tires, so I was like 5/10 off from my real quali pace. But even then, I might have gotten Jukka's draft in start if I had been like 3, but I don't think that would have changed the outcome.
It's understandable. I mean, knowing that, when you started the race, though, were you eager to try and get by those cars quickly, or did you feel like, oh no, I have time to pass them because I'm not going to catch those guys in front?
No, I was going to send it. Like first chance I get, I was going to send it because I didn't know how the race pace was, and I was trying to win still, of course. Like, no questions.
Well, It certainly gave us a tense one up at the top, watching you three for most of it. Commiserations that was back to third place. We were talking to the others about trying to break the trend next time out, because everybody keeps getting 2 wins, and then somebody else comes along. Are you going to try and prevent Pauli from being able to do that at Willow Springs, because that's a tight little difficult track?
I know I'm gonna like practicing the track because I've done it in 49 and it's super fun. I think it might be a draft fest into 79. We'll see, but at least I could have fun hot lapping the thing.
Well, best of luck when we head to California, and congratulations at least on a podium.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
There you go. That is Topi Kortsanimi, your third place finisher. One more who we didn't see up at the front as much, but definitely had his battles throughout. I believe Joey's caught up with Cam Porter.
Cam Porter finishing 15th today, but it seemed like the entire race, there was about 4 or 5 cars back there that you were just scrapping it out.
Yeah, that was a good race with Ellis and Gerard. They kept me honest for sure. I made a few mistakes during the race that allowed them to, get right on my gearbox, but I was able to hold them off. But that was, that's about where I expected to be. So in some ways, it was a successful race for me. I aimed to do it clean. If I can't be fast, I can at least be clean, and I managed to do that today. Had a good race with Ellis and Gerard. Thanks, guys.
And looking forward to next week, how do you feel about these cars on the interesting Willow Springs?
Oh, Willow Springs. Can't wait to race Willow Springs. I raced that track just a few times this week in a different series. Had a great time doing that, so I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Awesome, Cam. Well, thank you for coming out and racing here, and congrats on that 15th place finish today.
Thanks, Joey. See you next week.
That was Cam Porter, driver of the number 17.
Which will wrap up our show with a big thank you, of course, to the Lotus 79 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. And also thanks to the team today, Joey, Ryan, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. But also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. As we mentioned, next time out, we're off to California for Willow Springs. That'll be Sunday, November 12th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. But be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here. And until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
Wow.